Yes, we are officially rolling. I'm joined another valuable guest. So excited! I'm joined with Arenze Nwana today, and we're basically going to be discussing his journey, his story, and lots of value in what he has to share. So welcome, Arenze. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on board. Really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I've been keeping up with the other podcasts, and it's really inspiring. I think it's going to inspire a lot of people, even the young ones that are coming up as well. When they see stuff like this, it'll be very encouraging. So I think it's powerful.
No, I appreciate it, and just even your story from because you've been like all over the media, all over my feed anyway, with Forenzi to business school. But we'll get into that later. Of exactly how you got into business school. And you're studying a master's at the moment, but you sort of had that not career switch, but should I say academic degree switch from chemical engineering to finance and technology. So let's just take it back to when you were, I guess, in secondary school. Like when you were young, what was that career? What did you want to be growing up?
I think when I was young, I had like most African parents, African homes. I had that imposed mentality where I thought I was gonna do medicine. But internally, when I was a kid, I always said I wanted to be a banker. When I was five, like five or six, five or four, five, I always said I wanted
Five.
to be a banker. And my mom used to tell me that, but I didn't realize as I grew up, you get influenced by your environment and your society, and then the mentality, especially when I was secondary school, the mentality was like you become a like most African people becoming doctors or whatnot. And my parents were all like, "Oh, we want our family to be doctors," and so in secondary school, I had the mentality I was going to become a medical doctor. And then I realized like I was good at all the sciences and maths and whatnot, but I didn't like medicine, man. It wasn't my
Yeah.
flair. It wasn't what I was intrinsically good at. And eventually, once we got our GCSE grades, I went to Brampton, obviously, from All Saints. And at All Saints, I did I wanted to have a diverse set, so in case I changed my mind and eventually want to go back into medicine, I could. So I did chemistry, physics, economics, and what else did I do? Economics and maths. Sorry, that's it. So that gave me like if I wanted, because you only needed two sciences and math to do medicine. Innit? So, but eventually I decided, nah, I wanted to do engineering, but that took me long. I couldn't really find my compass. I don't know why. And to be honest, I remember I think I went to play somewhere and someone told me that they saw me uh, doing something in business or something like that. But I was like, at that time, I didn't really take those kind of things seriously. So I was like, no, let me just follow what I wanted to do in engineering because engineers eventually you can do anything. You can switch to do banking or switch to do whatever you want. And so ultimately, I was like, okay, let me do engineering, something that allows me to develop a diverse set of skills that I can leverage in any kind of place if I wanted to switch. And then, so I did engineering and yeah.
Wow. I mean, you sort of just brushed over. Oh, I just went to Brampton, and it's a hot topic and it's a hot name. And if you're listening, you don't know what Brampton Manor Academy. So they're that school that sends around, or I think on average, what 40 students from their sixth form to Oxbridge, so Oxford and Cambridge, and I think they're sending more than like the most prestigious schools such as Eton and all different independent private paying schools. So transitioning from I think you said All Saints, so a school in like East London, well school in Dagenham to Brampton Manor, was that a big switch in your academia?
I think, yeah, I think it really shows the power of association and your environment. Because I remember when we were leaving All Saints, they didn't want us to leave. I think that day, on that day, the BBC came because they were surprised by the grades at All Saints on that day. But I didn't care about nothing that was going on because I didn't apply to Brampton, innit? So I had to get there first and show them my grades and whatnot. I
Yeah.
did not. Yeah, they wanted to do this BBC thing. I was like, I'm not interested. I ran straight away to Brampton. I was like, I'm not staying here. And it was good because I think at the end of A levels, not that many people did fantastic. Well, to the level that I know they could have if they've been in a different environment, because the environment really cycle conditions you to how you perform. and then who you meet affects how far you go. Like, so I met like really close friends that I have, that we work together like day and night, like Baker Lubuama. So he's a medic at Cambridge. We were like this, like we work day and night, day and night, day and night. So that really changed the people I had as friends, like because I was used to being probably the one of the smartest in the crowd. So going to like being what an average, or still relatively smart, but an average amongst like a lot of people that are very smart, you then start to develop a lot faster, and your mentality changes and all of that things. Yeah, man. So it's just like networking. How you meet someone and your mentality changes. You probably do something that you never thought you could have. Just that kind of thing. So that happened to me mentally, and so I started thinking in a different way. I started aiming in a different way. Like, if I didn't go to Brampton, I probably would have gone to like some any other uni. Um, uh, Probably not, probably even Russell Group, because I didn't know unis were that important like that. So it
Okay.
enlightened me in a lot of ways.
So Brampton was so Brampton was sort of like that switch in your head and gave you like sort of options and allowed you to understand like in life there's so much more you can sort of aim for and go for, and that's what made
Yeah.
you study. So is that where you sort of found engineering as a potential course of your career?
Yeah, during that Brampton period, I found a lot of things, man. I found that's when I really took like a lot of things opened up, both even spiritually. But yeah, that's when I realized, okay, let me go for engineering. It was at Brampton I made that switch. Because before then I was still in between. I didn't know how to find what I was called to do or what I wanted to do. So I was just like, "Ah, let me just do engineering. Let me just do engineering instead of like medicine." So it was at Brampton I made that switch, and it was actually good because thank God I did engineering it. But yeah,
Yeah, and you wasn't. I don't think you passed through the school as well. Just like that one that just goes in and studies, because you said you found many things, and I know that you actually started up. We can call it Christian Union in the sixth form, and
yeah,
that's a big thing because I know that it's still running as of today. So even that, like, where did you get the courage? Should I say, was that a calling to say, "Oh, let me start up this union"? What was it like? Did you meet at break time, after school, lunchtime?
yeah. I can say at that time I knew God was doing a little revival in that Brampton, because I was always like a prayer, like not a prayer person. I was always like a lover of God. Even at All Saints, everyone knew that. I was used to, even though I didn't know much, I was used to preaching somehow, some capacity. Um, but at Brampton, I actually initially I stopped all of that. I wanted to do a new like vibe at Brampton initially, and then it was during that period that a big shift happened in my family. Um, and this big shift was with my brother, and then we just like a crowd, like two or three men of God came into our lives, and from there our lives just shifted. Like, I can't really, if I go into this story, it would just be a long story, but our lives shifted. And so as a function of that, so many spiritual things started happening that I didn't even think were possible. Up to now, my relationship with God was just that I love God. I used to listen to worship music and cry, that kind of experience. But then the spiritual realm became so real in that period. And when it opened up, I had a burning desire to just know Jesus. I remember my passion at that time was to see Jesus face to face. It was a
Mm,
disgusting fire in my heart. I remember even whilst I was in Brampton, I was doing crazy fasting. I wouldn't eat for days. I remember my teacher was looking at me, David, are you okay? I was in class like this. When they were teaching, I was conking out. I was looking like one guy that something fried your brain. But so there was a burning desire, and I remember there was a day I was worshiping the Lord, and then I heard a voice, will you know me and your friends will be perishing? And then a burning desire came for me to start praying for my friends. I said, okay. And so what I used to do, but naturally on my own, I just used to pray. When I start praying in the spirit, I would go at break time, start praying. I'll go at lunchtime, start praying. Before school, I'll be praying. After school, I'll be praying. And then so eventually, I think it was Matty. His name is Matthew. He's like, yo, bro, let me join you. that he wants to learn this thing that's happened to me. And then I showed him, I told him the word a bit, and then he became on fire as well. And so he started joining me in praying every lunch and every break time and whatnot. Before we knew, two other people came, three other people came, four other people came. The class was like 30 people, 30, 40, and then I was surprised. Even me, I was shocked. I remember that what the time that the hand of God was moving in the service, people were shaking in the Christian union. Um,
Wow.
it was actually then I had the first encounter with spirits in the classroom. I remember the teacher came in and somebody was moving somehow, and she was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Me, I don't know what's going on. This is my first, this is my first rodeo." So it was then I experienced the hand of God, and so that's how the Christian Union started. I didn't have an intention to start it. At that time I was more advanced spiritually than most of my peers, right? And so I knew I had a mandate to teach them. People used to come to me. I would teach them about praying in the spirit, praying in tongues, and all of these things. About spiritual encounters, about hearing the voice of God, about things like that. I start teaching very sporadically. Like we will all be on the train. I'll just be standing, and then people will ask questions, ask questions. These were my age people, right? And I saw a lot of them, even till now. A lot of your friends, they will tell you the same thing. I know you're friends with a lot of the people I know. I won't mention any names, but they'll tell you the same thing. Um, so yeah, so that's how it happened, and then it was actually in that period I started growing in the gifts of the spirit. It was by serving the people I started learning myself more about the spirit realm, etc. And that's how it opened up for me. I didn't plan it to happen. It just kind of happened, you know. I didn't plan, oh, I'm gonna start Christian Union. Nah. In fact, it was called Jesus Club at one point. Why I actually called it was Brampton Fellowship. Then eventually it was called Jesus Club. Then eventually I just said call it Christian Union, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then every other year has been maintained, and I've seen it impact lives. Oh my God, crazy. And I still train some of the people every other year, well, every year. And once they're strong, they train the other people so that we have like you're spreading the gospel through generations. Like I won't be there all the time, but I know everyone else that I've at least been able to train or show the pathways of prayer or the fundamentals of our faith. It will continue to go on. But yeah, that's how it happened. It was the grace of God.
Oh, wow. No, that that is a very very sort of powerful story, and I can see that you're very very strong in your faith. And I just wanted to you got into Brampton, man, and I feel like in that 2 years alone, you've just had a 360 transformation, and that's now been your pillar. Going on to like your next stage of your career, your next stage of your life, going into this chemical engineering degree. So even studying this, like, um, how many years did you even study your degree, and what university was it at?
Yes, I did my undergrad chemical engineering at UCL for 3 years. Yeah, I initially came thinking I'll do 4 years, but once things started switching, I started, okay, cool, let me finish with a bachelor's in engineering and go do my master's in financial technology.
Okay, so it was in that university experience period, sorry, where you sort of switched into the business. I mean, you previously touched on it. Someone told you that you might be good in business, but what exactly did they say?
So by this time, obviously, because I used to play the keyboard, right? So some places I'll play, and then men of God will say things about me, and back then I didn't really believe things like that, so I would often ignore what they're saying. It's only that after some period of time, I start seeing some of the what they were saying were coming to pass. So I remember that I won't share all of it, but I'll just give it an idea. So he basically said, I see you with, I mean, a lot of money or something like. Let me just say it like that. I see you going into this and excess. I don't want to really go in depth, but he said I see you in this kind of way. And initially, I didn't believe what he was talking about, so I still thought I was an engineer and whatnot. So I just aligned with what he was saying. Aligned with what I thought to do, and I just ignored what he was saying. But along the way, destiny just kind of shifts you, and you know that the hand of God is upon you when life just seems to work in a strange way and things are just kind of working in order, right? So things just switched along. I think I met Georgie Mafiadon. Um, he was on my course as well. So I remember one day we met for like coffee or something, and he's such a blessed guy. And we spoke, and after that conversation that we spoke, my mentality of how I treated university changed. So there was always somebody at one point that changed my trajectory. So when I had we spoke, it was just one conversation I had with George. I started seeing uni in a different way. I started seeing uni as a way to assist me on my divine purpose rather than getting the degree, doing a good job, and showing everybody you got first. I used it more to help me get to my divine purpose. Use it to tailor. When you have your vision, everything becomes a way to use it to get to where you need to be. So I started using my degree in that way, and then thinking in that ways. I started thinking more about purpose and vision, and where am I? I remember I went away and I think I prayed for a while. I was like, what am I meant to do? What am like? I now started really thinking about what I need to do in this life. What am I called to do? What do I need to? I remember I had a vision book. I don't know if I have it with me, but I had like this vision book, and I wrote things down. And after that prayer season, and I just started working in alignment with what those things that I wrote. And eventually, my mentality started changing towards engineering, and so I started going more towards business and investment banking and finance and all of these things, and just kept on meeting different people that change your trajectory slightly. And that's how I was graced enough, and you can say I was lucky.
Yeah, no, that's big. And George, I've mentioned, is he not the founder of Motives
Yeah,
or
that's right.
Motives? Yeah, that I've seen that a great organization that helps people with sort of career applications, mentoring, communication skills, and gets them into jobs. And I think I literally saw him graduate as well,
Yeah,
not too long ago. So no, big up George for the amazing work he's doing. And if you're listening, I might link up his organization in our newsletter at www.valuablepodcast.com, where if you subscribe, I share a lot of value weekly, not just on the podcast episode, but also on what I think you guys need to know and need to hear. But no, it's very interesting how you sort of encountered different people that's kind of pivoted the trajectory of your life. Because I think that it's the same. Like we and you talked about how university is now assisting your purpose. Because for me, how I've had many times. I mean, 3 years. You wonder how many times in 3 years you think, "Why am I here?" And you think, and I said to myself, then I pray to come into work, but I'm now complaining that I'm here because the degree is too hard, it's too difficult. And I always thought that because I actually done well, I applied for a degree apprenticeship in year 13, and I got to the very last stage. This is a massive, massive investment bank, one of the biggest, very last stage. However, by this time I already got my offer to study at Warwick, so I wouldn't say that 100% affected how I was acting in the final interview, but I wasn't too pressed. So I didn't get that. But I always sort of reminisce during my university experience, oh, why didn't I just do that degree apprenticeship instead? I would have been way more up in terms of money, in terms of my network experience. I wouldn't have to be doing these essays. But something that you said was so powerful. It's sort of like this university experience has made me meet so many fantastic people. So
that's
many society. There will be no podcast if I wasn't in university. I can even guarantee that. Does that make sense? Because I've had that time and I've had that experience, and I feel like so many of us can actually go through something as in it's just a means to an end. Let me just get this degree because that's what everyone does. We're on a conveyor belt. We go from secondary to sixth form to
exactly,
university
exactly,
to
exactly.
job. And some of us we're even happy now because we're getting big fancy jobs that it's like we're not still on the conveyor belt. But I feel like coming to that understanding or that place that this is actually a season, it's a period, and in this period I need to learn certain things, I need to meet certain people that's going to help me on my journey. And it's powerful that that was for you. And I'm sure even on your degree program you encountered some serious powerful people
Yeah,
because
definitely.
you made it into investment banking, I believe, and you done an internship with one of the biggest firms in the world and
Yeah.
successfully got the return offer. So talk to me a bit about what was the application or applications like to even get a land a role in investment banking.
Yeah, even that again was the mercy of God, and it was the hand of God. There was something called the Advancing Black Leaders or Advancing Black Pathways or something. Um, that I applied for, and I remember I was asking all my friends, "Yo, you guys apply," and I was even helping them get into the program, and I think I didn't even get past this third stage, but then somehow after the application closed, I think they reached out to me, and then they got me back on the stage after a long while. There was a man called Debidan of Sekita. He was kind of mentoring me on the side, right? And I don't know why he was mentoring me, but he was. He was mentoring me on the side, and eventually one day he said he's gonna test me, and that guy is a strict guy, man. My God. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I actually know him as well. Big up Debidan. So he runs if you're listening, he runs SPA, Stock Pickers Academy, which is an organization that teaches anyone literally no background in finance or investments basically how to pick stocks,
yeah,
how to grow your portfolio, how to manage your risk. And no, he's building a massive great community. But I just wanted to give that shout out.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. He's a no nonsense man.
Yeah, no nonsense guy. Like sometimes he'll call me at 6 a.m. And I'll call him at 6 a.m. and he'll ask me, what's the price of this? What's the price of that? What's the this? What's the this? What's the DAX? What's the VIX? I was like, oh God. And then he'll ask me what's 99 squared, what's 89 squared, what's all of this. He did that for like a couple weeks. And then one day he was like, okay, I'm gonna test you one day and pitch me a stock or something like that. He called me and said, pitch me a stock. After I pitched him a stock, he said, okay, cool. I'm going to get you back on the Advancing Black Leaders program. Just like that. I was like, okay. Then he got me back on the program. I did another interview with Andrew Sayemi from Rare. He was at Rare, but it's not a Rare no more. Andrew, and then I did an interview with Andrew. After the interview with Andrew, I was back onto the program, and then after that we had the interviews, the JP interviews, just like normal people had the JP interviews, and then assessment center, and then once a week I got past the assessment center. That was the internship. The internship was really like tight. It was tough, I won't lie, because I was still doing ministry at the same time, but not as active, but I was still active. um so it was really busy, like the hours are insane. um but it was worthwhile. I think the main points on that was working hard and just staying motivated. It was really long. I won't lie. But after that, we converted, and then glory to God, everything worked out. I'm kind of jumping, but that's how it worked out. It started with Debidan, and then I got back onto the ABL. From the ABL, I did the normal JP process, and that was it.
Yeah, see the same themes continuing. You bumped into someone, or should I say, you know, you met someone that's again about to change the trajectory of your life. And
Exactly.
if you said that, what was the one thing or two things that Debenham sort of taught you? So not specifically, but something that you think helped you in the process and even survive the internship, should I say? Because we all know that it's a grueling sort of tough time because everyone's trying to prove themselves, but you're also trying to find out if this sort of work is for you as well. So it's a bit difficult. So what helped you in that process?
What I learned the most from like being with David was maintaining a humble mentality. Like it was, I believe it was the fact that I was able to sustain a mentality that was humble, that he could even stay with me, because sometimes I didn't know the things he was saying, but I wasn't overconfident. I remember when I was in my first year at Rob, because I started to come into enlightenment of where I knew God was taking me. You can derive overconfidence, and everyone around me knew this. I just knew where I was going, so I didn't really like to do many things, be around many people. I stayed a lot alone a lot. I stayed alone a lot for my first 2 years. Um, so I was very independent, and I didn't really want to be around people. So you can derive a self dependent and self overconfidence, right? And that is very dangerous, because when you start meeting people that hide, and you won't know when that speaks as pride, right? So
Yeah,
when I was with Debidan, I started to know what it means to just really humble yourself and be quiet. If he's telling you to do something, do something, do it to the best of your ability, working hard, being persistent and consistent. Debidan would not have helped me. I remember like I had an interview with him and he totally destroyed me. Totally destroyed me. I had to message him after and be like, please mentor me, help me, help me, help me, help me. And that's how it happened. So it helped. It just showed you that if you want to rise, just bow your head, and
Yeah.
people will carry you up.
No,
It's when you start
that's
becoming thinking you know where you are, and that you're that guy, and I know where I'm going. That you find that you'll be resisted so much. But if you humble yourself, there's grace to lift you up, and that's one thing I really learned. I think it was powerful. Yeah.
wow. That's what you call the secret to success. I think is that element of humility. And I think nowadays as well, like you said, especially in the corporate sort of industry, there's a false sense of humility. I've
Yeah,
heard people say, on LinkedIn, I talk about LinkedIn a lot because I use it, but I heard people say, oh, I'm not posting. Like they've got their internship, they've got their grad job, but oh, I'm not gonna be like these lot. Oh, congratulations, I'm not posting. No,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
and they think I'm humble. But
That's
it's just vain
that's
glory.
what we call hidden pride, and that's even worse.
Yeah, no. So that idea of just being humble, being humility, because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Does that
Exactly.
make sense? You don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
and I feel like especially when you're meeting like OGs and veterans in the
Yeah.
game, we have to sort of silence
Put your
yourself.
head
So
down. Yeah.
after doing that internship, I know you probably carried that same sort of humility through the internship,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you've now got that sort of return offer.
Yeah.
So during the internship, was there anyone else that sort of gave you good advice to handle it whilst you're on the job?
There was a lady who was like she was on my team. She was like an associate, and she spent like 2 hours or 3 hours on the weekend just like running me through things, helping me out. Other than that, the internship was like you must survive on your own kind of thing. When the hand of God is with you, somehow people will just come to your rescue at some point. I didn't know why the man just took a liking into me. He actually lunch. He took me out for lunch, and he just kept on speaking to me throughout the process and just encouraging me. Like some things he said about the FaceTime thing. So people say FaceTime don't matter and all of that stuff. See, I won't say it here, but perhaps we'll speak about it on private. But FaceTime to some degree does matter, and he's an MD, right? So he was like, to some degree, it matters. If you see someone working really hard, obviously you know, okay, this guy can handle the role, right? So people say, no, FaceTime don't matter. You don't need to be seen. People are human. They need to see, oh, more, this guy can handle the job and this guy can't
Yeah,
handle the job, kind of thing. So he was giving me authentic advice from a top level, and it was really helpful. But yeah,
yeah. No, that's powerful. And so, was it at this same period you then were because this was in summer, correct?
yeah,
So you were figuring out how to now get into business school or get into masters. So was like correct me if I'm wrong. So you launched your successful campaign called a Renzi to Business School, and I'm not sure initially how much you're funding for, but I know that in the space of a couple months you raised around £40,000.
yeah,
And for me, just watching that campaign, I remember the day you launched it, and you
yeah,
see a lot of GoFundMe pages, and as much as I try to help out here and there, and there's just so many you can do. So when I saw your page and I saw it was just different. You're coming out with promo video. There was campaigns. You had, and I think this is what I really want to touch on, is the fact that you had like a team. I can even say people who were so humble in serving you to make sure that you get to business school, who were doing cake sales, who were doing wearing t-shirts, who were like, I was like, wow, like what does it take to get people to support you so much? I'm sure there's a backstory to that.
yeah. I give you the best example. From the person I learned from, right? See, now there's so many people who are willing to die for Christ, right? And the reason why they're willing to die for Christ is because he died for us first, right? So what compels men to serve is the fact that they were served initially in such a way that they are constricted. Paul says that the love of God or the love of Christ constrains us, that if one died for all, then all should die for him who died for all. Meaning that if one had served us, we are now compelled to do the same back. So it's a lifestyle that we live that and those guys were actually from the Christian Union, to be honest. Um they were from, I think they're the fifth generation. Some of them were fifth generation, and their lives had quite, by the grace of God, God had changed their lives quite significantly from how they used to live their life. And so they used to be around me a lot. Some of them, I used to spend a lot of time with them in my place, so that I told them to come to my place, share with them, and etc. So over time, they were so passionate to help me, and they wanted to push it for me, and they did a lot of work for me, even behind the scenes. And I always tell them, like, you guys are my people, you're my people, and I'm willing to do anything for them. So it's just a life of service. They took the nature that I wanted them to, what wanted them to take, which is the life of service. My whole life is about servanthood. It can be summed up in that one word. And I told them the same thing, and they do the same thing for others. And likewise, they did the same thing for me. But yeah. But in terms of the Rinse business to business school, it actually was a function of a revelation I had in 2020. I actually had an encounter when I was worshiping God in 2020, and I actually wrote a song about it. But 2020, I remember I was worshiping, and then I started feeling someone behind me. And then the next thing I heard, your light has come. I didn't understand it. This was September. And I wrote, and that's where there's an album that I brought out, which was called Illumination. And I heard your light has come, and I didn't understand what it meant. I didn't even know it was in the Bible. So I spent a lot of time trying to research, where is this from? Where is this from? And eventually I found out it was in Isaiah chapter 60. So I used to read Isaiah chapter 60 like almost every day, every day. And then this was even before I started thinking about business school. I was actually meant to go to America. The place I was actually going to apply for was Harvard. And then I was going to do the scholarship and everything. And then as I was finishing my application, I lost my peace. And when I lose my peace, it's very hard to get, like, to do anything. So I knew that I wasn't meant to go there, especially not to go there now. So, and this was actually before the ministry that we're in now started. But long story short, I had this revelation, and in that revelation, if you read Isaiah chapter 60, it said, the wealth of the Gentiles shall come to you. Say, your gates shall be open continually, that men will bring to you the wealth of the Gentiles. And then I was asking God, how will I fund this thing? Because when He told me not to go to Harvard, there was somewhere else He told me to. I said, how will I? And then I had a word from the Lord, and then I just followed the word. And then that's how I prepared so much on the backlog. And then when it was time and I got the sign, I just released the campaign. I just trusted God, and it was, we raised almost like 50K, and a lot of the money was from mostly the two scholarships, funding just from crazy places, like things I wouldn't have expected. And then God helped me, and everything just came into order. The way it happened, it was like a film. It was, to me, it was like a film. But
Yeah.
like, before that, so many confirmations have happened. I remember random people were calling me. I remember there was even a girl, she goes to UCL. She's actually a close friend. Her name is Tammy, and she just called me David. She sounded a very high pitched voice. David, I see you getting a lot of money. I said, don't worry, you're in alignment, you're in alignment. Then people were just calling me before they even knew the campaign was coming up. So that's how I got confirmation that I'm in alignment with what God wants me to do. So I did it. And then, even when I did the campaign, there was a lot of, like, contention, and you'd be surprised that people who were contending with me were people who were close to me. But I knew what I heard, and I just kept on following. I know the money came, and it happened by the grace of God. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw that you got different scholarships from the Black Heart Foundation, the Imperial Excellence Scholarship, other student funding, and you've touched on it from a sort of spiritual element, but, like, practically, how did it sort of physically, if that makes sense, like, what went into running that campaign? Because there's a lot of work behind it, physical work that I know, and I feel like you sort of lightly brushed over it, and I understand it, and God has a way for somebody, it will come to pass. But sort of like, what did you have to do to play your part in that?
Yeah, not to over spiritualize it, but I like there was a lot of preparation in terms of the video, making the video, But again, I was favoring that somebody just said they'll do it for me, and his name was David. He just literally said, "I'll do it for you for free," and then he did the whole editing and everything, taking all the video, recording. So he was a professional, so he did his stuff. I didn't pay a dime for it. I just honored him after, but the video prep, making of the leaflets, the people that helped me, um, Deborah Lawani, Jegede Brimson, Bosse, Bosse and Rachel, all of those people, they gathered together. They were reaching out to people, calling people, messaging people, emailing people, whilst I was working as well. So they were doing all of these cake sales. I could, and anything they could do, they did. It took a lot of the time they were crazy tired, and they would just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And then that's, I don't know how it happened, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, no,
It's
because
crazy.
sorry, there's a train that goes by that makes noise. But no, I was going to say I know it was a mighty work when in my email inbox I'm getting a random email saying, "Have you seen this? Erenze to business school." A whole paragraph. I said, "I." Where did you even source my email from? I was even scared myself. Where did you even get my email online? And that's how I know it. And if it reached me, just to think about the many different people it reached, and the reason why I'm talking about this is sort of to really just highlight the extent to the work, if that makes sense. And people call it cold emailing, outsourcing, like sort of that. You're to make something happen, like there has to be work behind it. And
Yes,
I,
sir.
and I don't want to fluff around it. And obviously, it sounds to me like you was just, you were sort of just blessed, favored. In fact, let me just use that word, favored, in a sense that you had so many people helping you, but these people are on the ground making things move. You might have not necessarily known to the extent that which these emails and cake sales and all sorts of ways to raise money was going out, but the fact that it all came together and it's now funded you into that masters. And I think so. If is your masters only for a year, or
Yeah,
is it longer?
it's for a year. So I finished in September,
Okay, so you finish in September, and you're going to join full time, hopefully, in investment banking.
July. Yeah.
Okay, and so what do you think the preparation will be like for that next stage of your journey? Should I say? We've talked about the secondary, we've talked about the sixth form, talked about this university masters, but now you're entering a new stage. I mean, you're already an adult, but I feel like once we leave this university place, I think life will just come very fast at all of us. So, is there anything you're doing to sort of prepare for that in general?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of preparation in terms of mentally, um, just getting things in alignment. There are things I wanted to do before the end of the year, and just making sure I have things planned. So first of all, I want to prepare for the job role itself. Make sure that I can do my job really well. I think that's very very important. You don't want to be there and be a liability. You want to be there and be an asset, and that holds up to what you're talking about, value, right? So prepare as much as I can. Make sure I understand the concepts, understand what my role is, and how I can contribute effectively, be a valuable addition to the team. And then beyond that, preparation for life on a wider scale. Just writing down my vision, writing down the things that I want to see before the end of the year, and the things I want to see prospectively after that. Because when the busyness comes, it's very hard to have some time to think and get these things down. So that's mainly what I'm doing: more mental preparation and spiritual preparation. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And I think, like you said, that busyness of life. So, one thing that helped me sort of, I guess, calm down, I like to walk, as in, and people say, huh, like everyone walks, but I like to walk. I remember in a couple years ago, I used to literally just leave my phone at home. And it's after reading a book called Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, and he's a great author, and he talks about how we can just minimalize the way we're connected digitally to social media and the world. And he talks about one of them where we should just go on long walks and leave our phones at home. I know for some people that might have implications. My mom, my dad, people can't reach me, but it's like, on average, I don't think you'll die if you leave your phone at home
yeah,
for me just for an hour and sort of go on a walk. So that's what I used to do, and I used to just walk and walk, and you'll be surprised with that. there's so much thoughts and thinking that comes on that walk. Like I go on a walk and I've got the next strategy. I got the strategy for the next 3 months. Literally, one
Yeah,
walk will I've devised the plan for the next 3 months,
yeah,
and I always feel like just taking that time to whether you like nature, whether you're doing walks in the city, or even if you're going on a hiatus. What I mean by that, you're traveling to a coffee store and you're sitting in it by yourself. You order coffee, like you're just having that downtime by yourself to be alone with your thoughts. I feel like
yeah,
it can go a long way and sort of plan your the journey ahead. So it's good that you're mentally preparing as well for what's going ahead.
yeah. Like the most question that I always get is people ask, how do you maintain a balance? Because obviously there's ministry, there's working, there's my music, there's mentoring, and mentoring is probably one that takes most of my time. Mentoring and building people. It takes a lot of time to really invest in somebody's life that will make them stop all the bad stuff they used to do and start living a good life. It takes that's the one that probably takes most of my time in life. Investing in people because you have to call them every day. Sometimes I'll tell them to come and spend the whole day in my house. Come and stay here. You'll be working here, you'll be studying here. Some people that were failing, totally failing their degrees, failing in all ramifications of life. You bring them close, you stay with them day and night. How do you balance that? How do you balance your prayer life, your spiritual life with your working life? How do you make sure you're still and excelling in your studies and all of these things? The biggest advice I can give for anyone in ministry, in working in banking or working and all of these things, you're quite busy, is to have discipline, very strict discipline, and to not play with your spiritual life. The one advice the mentors that told me, there was a man, I won't mention his name just so it won't cause any problem, but he's a millionaire, but he works in ministry. And in his ministry, he pays everyone's salary. Everybody, he funds ministries, he funds so many things, pays for widows, buys, and he told me these things. He said, Arinze, the first time when you crash is when your spiritual life dies. And this happened to me 3 times. There was a week where things were just happening. Life was so busy. For a week, I didn't remember when I slept. I would wake up not knowing when I slept every day for like 5 days. And it was because I was giving so much and my spiritual life was not sustaining. And this advice I give you, strict discipline. Make sure you don't joke with your prayer life, your meditation, all of these things. They come first. It's the spirit of a man that sustains him. Nobody understands that thing. It's only when you get totally busy. That's why I have a lot of people who are busy, some known people, and they'll come and tell me I'm suffering from depression, suffering from this. How do you do it? And I'm telling you, you will suffer from depression, everything, because your spirit cannot sustain what you're doing. I live a very prayed life. I pray throughout the day, I pray through the night, and the atmosphere I stay in. That's why music is important. It cultivates the presence of God, which sustains me. But discipline, when you wake up, having a very strict lifestyle, that's how you'll be able to do a lot. If you live a very loose life, you wake up whenever you want to, you sleep whenever you want to, you pray whenever you like, you read your Bible whenever you like. Oh, you are a casualty waiting to happen. You are go. Oh my God, you are about to crash. You are playing on high velocity, about to hit a brick wall. I'm telling you, like if you live a very loose life, you regret it. Live a very take the narrow way. You know that Jesus gives us that parable about the broad and the narrow. It's hard. It's hard, but eventually it becomes very profitable. Well, obviously, living this life now, we were trained, but obviously, no one saw when we were trained. For 5 years of praying in the secret, all of these things, so that we can build people, we can do all these things, and still be able to not crash. Prayer is one of the most important things. Meditation, very important. Um, and then your career, studying. I used to study. I remember I'll wake up 5 a.m. I'll stay in the library, get to the library around 6, 7, stay to the library around 11 p.m., go home, pray, sleep, wake up again. This will be a hard talk, but me, I don't shift my doctrine from what people will say. If you can't pray 1 hour a day, you need to ask for help. Get someone that will teach you how to pray. The disciples told Jesus, teach us to pray. But you need to learn to grow your spiritual life. You live in a multi-dimensional realm. Everybody knows that this realm cannot just be physical. You know that there's a physical and there's a spiritual dimension. You can't just be working hard in the physical and leave your spiritual. One day you suffer from depression. And depression is not just a physical thing, it's a spiritual thing. I've had many people that listen to my instrumentals and depression will flee. It's a spiritual thing. Start first from the spirit because your spirit is weak and you're going around a lot of people's spirit and this is impressing yours. So your spirit must be strong to sustain a busy lifestyle. So make even when whilst I was at the bank, even the security guard used to see me when I'll leave the office and be praying. The guy asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, don't worry about that, my son. Don't worry. He was a security guard. I'll walk around the bit of the company and be praying. You cannot fall. And that's why at the bank, I was consoling people who could not handle it. They were like, I've never seen someone as motivated and as hardworking as you. And they didn't understand it was the spiritual thing that kept me consistent. And I was still doing ministry. And most of the people that were on my team, they were not doing anything else. They would go and drink in the evening. They would go and do all these things. All I was doing, I worked hard. I stayed in the office the latest. I came the earliest. And I was still, what's it called? Maintaining my spiritual life. Your spiritual life should not be voided. If you void it, you crash. There's every sustenance comes from the spiritual, and then it must manifest in the physical. You become stable. Your vision will be clear. If you become too busy, you will lack vision. You become very confused. Very confused. All these things that people always ask me, and I think this is one of the most important things. Balance, strict balance is important. And you must balance the spiritual with the physical. Work hard, spend hours in studying, and do the spiritual side as well.
And I wanted to quickly touch on it. On your LinkedIn, you said a very famous, interesting quote by Albert Einstein, and it says, "Try not to become a man of success, rather become a man of value." And you know this is the Valuable Podcast, so we love that quote there. But what does that mean to you? Why is that something you've published?
That's a very, very, very powerful quote. Try not to be a man of success, but be a man of value. Like, the zenith, the zenith of value is when it's fully demonstrated in purpose, right? And the thing you need to notice is that success is the thing that everyone sees. Value is that which is hidden, right? And when value is demonstrated in purpose, that's when it becomes truly potent. And success does not sustain the capacity to influence generations. Value does, right? Success is just the medal for having value. And not many people, not all people that are valuable make success. Doesn't mean they're not valuable, right? Success is just I give you a trophy. Wow, in the first class you get for your degree. But um the thing about success, you can achieve it in a counterfeit way, and
Mm,
people will never know. Value is the intrinsic quality, the intrinsic behavior that achieves success, and it doesn't need to be alarmed. It is what it is, if you understand what I mean. Whereas
so-
success is the throne that people put on it, is the crown that you're given and that people excel you for. But they never know how you got that. But value is that which is hidden, and it may never be seen until it's time of revealing, right? And I think that's important because people get so excited about having success. Success is not something necessarily you should chase. I think Jim Rohn is the one that always says is what you achieve, is what you get from who you become, right? So the zenith, and I always say zenith of value again is when it's demonstrated in purpose. Success is just that thing that the world wants to put on it and say, wow, you are now a first class student, even though you might have cheated the whole way through that first degree. And I give you a first class, and everyone will say, wow, you're first class. But true value is that you learned everything, you were integral in studying that degree, and you became someone worthy of a first class, right? You understand?
mm,
You might not have been given, let's say something happened, you weren't able to get a certificate, but you are still a first class student without the first class certificate, right?
wow.
So that's important. Value is that which none can see. No one can see that. It is hidden. And the things which are hidden are actually more potent than the things which are seen. That's why the spiritual realm is far more powerful than the physical, right? So, and everything and this is, I'll use this to explain this. In the book of, I'm a Bible man, so you have to accept that. In the book of Hebrews, it says, we know that the things which are seen are derived from the things which are unseen. Now, it's important to know that Value is the thing which is unseen, and it brings forth success, which is the thing that it is seen. So, and the thing which is not seen is far greater than the thing which is seen, because it controls the thing which is seen. So that's why I believe becoming a man of value is far greater than becoming a man of success. Yeah.
Wow, that I don't even think I've heard that perspective or that broken down so well, and I 100% agree with that. In a sense, you made it so applicable as well that we attach success to what we can see and that crowned first class. But there's so many people scheming through life, and because of
Brother,
social media, it's made it so much easier for people to now get away with those schemes, because I can post something today, you have no idea what I did to even get that. You'll congratulate me, you'll story post me, you will shout me
exactly.
out to your friends, you'll mention my name in rooms I'm not there. And when push comes to shove, and that inherent, that sort of behind the scenes sort of value, and Jim Rohn, I listened to Jim Rohn as well. Absolutely, the wisdom even in some of his talks is absolutely phenomenal. And yes, he talks about it's more important to the man or the woman you become, and he's like, I call him, he's the pioneer of personal development. When we talk about personal development, space, self development, I know he had a mentor called Shoaff.
Oh, I
I
thought it
think it
was
was,
a Nightingale. Oh, am I mixing it up?
yeah, it was Earl Shoaff, but Earl Nightingale as well has the Strangest Secret.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's a lot of them titans in the game in terms of personal development, but they actually repeat the same thing:
same thing.
who
And they
you
get it,
become.
where they get it from. It's the Bible. Do you know
Mm,
how much Jim Rohn quotes the Bible? He takes all his teachings from the parables that Jesus taught. Same as Earl
mm,
Nightingale. It's crazy.
yeah,
So, and people neglect the Bible so many times, but the secrets are all in there.
and they communicate it in such a way for people of our generation to understand. And I feel like that's with all sorts of information. And I keep on saying it, like stuff like all the success quotes and sayings, practice makes perfect. You're the average of the five people you spend your most time with. Like there's nothing new under the sun. This information has been communicated before and is being communicated again and again and again. And I feel like that's that sort of switch. I mean, again, rest in peace, Bob Proctor. And Bob Proctor was another one of those who talks about the paradigm shift. That
Mm,
sort of, I just call it that light, that revelation that will just change your mindset. He talks about the paradigm shift, how we grow up as children, which I do believe, and we sort of just take in things, into our subconscious. We don't know how to think. So when we grow older, that subconscious shows. But you then make an active decision. Wait, I need to now change my mindset. I need to now change the information that I was just given and learn something new. And that's going to change my outcomes and my behaviors. And I think that's so powerful as well.
completely agree.
No, absolutely. And I can just see you, I can see your keyboard in the background. So I know you're a man of faith, but you're also a musician. I don't know if you're a part-time musician. Is it by day or by night?
Was it by day or by night? Yeah, so I used to play keys a lot as a musician. Now it's more of a thing. It's more of just how I communicate with the Father. Obviously I do a lot of instrumentals, etc., and make a lot of spiritual sounds and whatnot. So it's day and night.
Yeah.
Music
I
is
mean,
in my spirit. Hmm.
for sure. When was your first experience playing the keyboard or with keys? Like, when did you first lay hands on it?
When I was in year nine, year 10. I just saw someone play and I was like, oh, I really want to play. I've always wanted to play an instrument, but I remember there was someone that told me, oh, it's something that's natural. You can't really learn it. You just have to have a natural inclination to it. And so it put me off. See, this is why when you're young, who you listen to and who impacts your life is very important. And so they said this to me, and I was running away from instruments because I thought you had to be naturally gifted and you have to be naturally a musician. And eventually, one day, I remember there's someone, his name is Toby Yola. He taught me one song, which was CeeLo Green on the keyboard. And I played CeeLo Green for so many times, played that song for hours. And eventually, the next song I learned was You Are Alpha. And I remember I was struggling to learn the song because it was so hard. And I asked God, if you could, if you teach me this instrument, I'll worship you the rest of my life on this keyboard. And that's from there I could spend 12 hours on the keyboard and not even know it. I could spend 10 hours, I can 8 hours on the keys, and eventually that's how it happened. And along the way, people started helping me. They'll teach me this, they'll teach me that, and then it just kept on growing and kept on growing. So it was around year nine, year 10.
No, that's good. And one thing I noticed, because I mean, you already said you're a Bible man, so no one can complain. But you mentioned a lot that you heard from God, you heard from God, and that might be foreign to a lot of people. So I mean, does he talk like? What do you mean you hear from God? I mean, I'm just asking that. How do you hear from God?
Okay. Let me ask you a question. God is what? Is he physical? What is he?
God,
Yeah, God.
God is mighty, spiritual, is the creator
Okay,
of
spirit.
the universe.
That's it. God is spirit, right? He's spirit. Spirit, do they speak English or French or Japanese?
You
That's the
tell
question.
me.
That's the question you have to always ask, because people ask. So when God speaks, does He say He He's spirit? He speaks. So your spiritual senses must first be awakened. If God spoke, if we were in the same room now and the voice of God came to both of us, we will both interpret in two different ways, but the same core message will be given. But you might see, for example, if God, the way God speaks to me and my brother is far different, but we always get the same message. And if there's one person now and he asks us to inquire of the Lord about this person, we will come up with the same thing, but in two different ways. I might see, he might hear, right? Because we have different natures in the spirit. So when I say the voice of the Lord came to me, or God spoke to me, it comes in a, you come into a knowing. See, the things of spirits, if you work in the like, if you start growing in the spirit, you come into a knowing. And you find this with those who meditate a lot, right? You come to just start knowing things. You don't know how you know, but you just know. You can meet somebody now, know things about them. You don't know how you know, but you just know. So when the voice of the Lord comes to me, comes as a knowing, I just know what to do immediately. It's like a download. You just know what to do immediately. And sometimes you can have an inner witness. There's a sign, right? But obviously, these things I don't want to go into too depth because this is not a platform to be teaching, to doing teachings. But ultimately, when the voice of the Lord comes to me, it's a spiritual sign. It's a spiritual sign. That sign can come with a knowledge. You come into the gate of intuition, which is what I call it, the gate of intuition, where you come to a knowing. As you press on in the spirit, you stay long in prayer. You just start knowing what you have to do, what you need to do. When spirits teach people, they don't teach them in English. They will literally stretch forth their hand, and you begin to just know. If you were to appear in the spirit realm now, you know my name without knowing me. You can know what I do without knowing me. But how you press on into that realm depends on how, whether you receive those impulses. Some people now will say what I'm saying is no, I don't believe it. Those who walk in this realm will tell you, they will know what I'm saying, right? So the voice of the Lord is not English, it's not Spanish, it's not Japanese, it's spirit. And spirit represents itself in your spirit. So when the voice of the Lord hits me, I know. If God speaks to me about someone, I know. I'll just come into knowing. It's called the knowing of revelation. But you know what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And that's the best way I can describe it. You don't know how you know, but you just know. But you
Mhm.
spend long in the place of prayer, and then you open that realm to you. It takes a while, but eventually those realms open.
Wow, that's really powerful. And I guess just to sort of wrap this up, so 2022, what do you think, or what do you know that you need to be doing this year, and how do you plan to finish the year well?
I'm just the same things that I tell my young ones. I'm just gonna do the little things well. Do the small things very well. Finish with the masters. Finish with going to work. The other visions and the other things that I need to do, I'll start working on them and planning, just being disciplined with the small things, do them very well, and eventually things will work out for 2022. I've written my goals down, written the things I need to get done, balance ministry, balance all of these things, and eventually do the small things well, and I'll get there to the end of 2022, and I'll be happy.
Amazing, amazing, and I hope it goes very well for you. Thank you so much for coming on. Please let them know where they can find you and follow you and also support you.
Yeah, so I think I'm on Instagram. Arinze David. I'm on YouTube, Arinze Keys. I'm on Spotify, Arinze Keys. I'm on LinkedIn, Arinze David Nwana. And I think that's about it. But there's my link tree on Arinze David on Instagram anyway. So
All right. Thank you so much for coming on today.
no worries, man.